Full regalia, the booze, the job, the right hat. So here's a little bit from Dawn.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Bobby.
How are you?
Yeah, thank you.
Good, good. Hey, you shut that off just for a minute. Got the TV on behind me. I had house guests last night, so we'll get started in just a minute. I've got some good stuff for y'all. Let me send a quick reminder out. Thank you, Monica, for sending out an additional reminder. Right. So not only am I experimenting with a calendar, I also switched phones. So I'm going to give you all my new number. The old number is going to be my office phone so that anyone who has that number it's not going to dial me directly and I won't have to ignore all my calls. So I'll share that new number with you before we end the meeting today, and you can call me all direct. It's just something I had to do because I messed up. I gave the number out to people that were tenants and condominium owners, and even if I only give it to one person, it's going to get out to everybody. So too many people have it, so I had to do something, but we have a solution. But anyway, what that did was since I'm using two phones at the moment, I could only text from the old one to people with iCloud. So that's making it a little bit difficult too. But thank you for bearing with me. I do appreciate it. But what I want to do is just make sure everybody has the information for today's meeting so they can get on. So that's what I'm doing. Just going to send a quick reminder to those other folks. Okay. Okay, we'll get started. So good morning, everybody. I wanted to go over some information that you may or may not be aware of. You know, as we move forward with these new regulations, it's going to be very important to make sure that our contracts are impeccable. If nobody here has submitted an offer recently, the whole offer process looks a little bit different. And if you don't do it right, you're not getting paid. I mean, your client may get the house they love, but you're not going to get paid. And it's very, very important now more than ever that you read your contract. So I'm going to go over some tips on making sure that you are submitting an offer that oh, good, Paul's here, that gets accepted and that makes sure that you are paid. Okay, so I have an example here that I'm going to share with you. And we're just gonna look through an offer. It's an actual offer that was submitted, but I want to show you some, oh, good, here we go. I want to show you some, things that you need to look out for, okay? Hang on, let me just grab it here. So I made an offer on a house in San Bernardino, and we got a counter offer. Okay. It was a seller multiple counter offer, which is very common to get, but I want to show you this counter offer and I want to bring your attention, bring your attention to just some items on here that I want you to be sure and look out for. Okay. So I'm going to bring it up and then I'm going to share it with you right now. Okay, here we go. Too many things open. Okay, there we go. All right, so share, and we're going to share a document. No screens. Okay. Okay, why isn't it giving me the screen I just opened? Hold on. Trust me, this is going to be worth it. Bear with me. I don't know why it's not pulling up the one I want to share. Oh, maybe I just, okay, then we'll try that. I don't know. All right. Try again, share. There we are. Okay, share. Okay, so here's an offer that we were countered on, and this is the counter offer I received. So if you look at it, it looks pretty much like any other seller multiple counter. These are more common nowadays. I think that we had to wait for this. And I got a lot of, oh, I'm having trouble meeting up with the seller. We have a meeting tonight at 6. And then the next day it would be like, no, they rescheduled. It was a lot of just having us wait, right? So time frames are going to be really, really important because what I suspect that they were waiting on is another offer so that they could respond with a seller multiple counter offer instead of just a regular counter offer, because this offer, as soon as we got the seller multiple counter offer back, it was signed right away, almost like they were waiting for us to get this thing back. But so timelines are going to be really important. You have at the bottom, okay, so we got this, and let me just go through this first and then I'll go over the other. So a couple of interesting things here. So the document is dated 9/12/24, right? But it's the offer is actually dated the day before. So that was interesting. Like this person definitely was not careful about their dates. So this document's dated actually the day before they even received our offer. So maybe we were the one they were waiting for. Who knows? Although we were put off for, I don't know, like 4 days, they kept saying, well, it's coming, we're meeting, whatever. Anyway, that was interesting. So on our buyer counter offer, I corrected this anomaly here in my counter because I want to have documents that are impeccable. All right, so this is the address. Here's the buyer and seller terms. Okay, now she had so many terms that she had to use a text overflow addendum. So we're not going to see what they're asking for until we look at the text overflow addendum, which just means they have too many things that would not fit on that form field. Okay, so this is text overflow addendum number 1. So first of all, we have number 1. It's the only number in this whole entire list, but this is definitely a laundry list of items, right? So this actually, if you were writing this, you want to make sure that you have a line item for every different term. You don't want to put a 1 and then list 20 terms, because then when I or whoever refers to one of the terms, it's going to be very difficult. So you'll see what I did to handle that in just a minute. But here they said, number 1, SMCO, paragraph 1D, agent other terms. And this 1D is just referring back to the field that wasn't long enough to have all the terms on it. So the first line is simply them referring back to the original document. So the first term is sales price to be $450. Seller choice of NHD is the second term. Third term, each party to pay their own fees, title, escrow, etc. Right there, you want your red flags going up. Okay, you never ever want to see nor use the term etc. in a legal document. What the heck is etc.? Do they mean buyer's compensation, buyer's agent's compensation? Are they talking about, what are they talking about? And when I called the agent to ask her about what is etc., she said, she acted like, oh, you're so dumb. You know what it is. Well, no, you know, and agents will try and do that. They'll try and make you feel like you don't know what you're talking about. And and that's just their a way to bully you. And it's a terrible thing that happens in the industry when agents don't know what they're talking about. They try and make you feel like you don't know what you're talking about. So beware. Every time that an agent comes at you like that, it really is a signal to you that they are unsure of what they're doing. So remember that. Don't ever fall for their games. Just remember that the stronger they're making you try and feel like you don't know what you're talking about, that's the level at which they don't know what they're talking about. So just remember that. All right, so we had to counter out that word, etc. We're not going to have that word in any legal contract. But before the etc., it says each party to pay their own fees, title, escrow. So when I countered, well, you'll see in a minute how I counter. Then the next term, home warranty to be with Old Republic, $495. A little unclear. I mean, we understand that it looks like they're going with Old Republic and they're paying $495, but it's really unclear, isn't it? The language used here is not contract language. Buyer to give authorization to loan agent to speak to listing agent in reference to the loan. I've never seen this put in a contract. I guess this agent at one time may have had some difficulty talking with the buyer's agent's lender, but normally, you know, there's never a problem here. They're willing to talk to anyone who's authorized, you know, and if it's their transaction, they'll usually speak with the agent. But this just tells me that at one time she had a tough time. So she's going to put it in the contract. All right. Buyer to release appraisal to listing agent. I thought that was a little unusual. Normally we don't release the appraisal to the listing agent, but I guess at one time, you can really tell the history of this agent, what she's run into. But I guess at one time, the seller wanted the appraisal, the buyer wouldn't release it. So she thought, I'm going to put it in the counter. So anyway, I don't care one way or another. Once you're under contract, there's really nothing that they can do. If the appraisal came in higher than the selling price, the seller can't really do anything at that point once they're under contract. So it just really adds bad feelings to the whole transaction. So if she wants to cause that for her seller, fine. I don't care. But yeah, I would never put something like that in a counter offer. I just don't think that's smart to do because, like I said, there's really no good reason for it unless you're expecting, as if you're representing the listing agent and you're expecting this deal to go south for this transaction to not complete, then you'll have an appraisal to use to market the property going forward. That would be the only advantage I would see for having the appraisal. Hey, Mike, could you handle this? It's Sal. Sorry about that. He's up in the mountains and he's not able to find the house. We need him to find the house. Okay. You can call her too. Anyway, sorry about that. So this one here, I would never put it in a counter offer. I just wouldn't. I just don't see any good reason for it. Next one, sellers selling as is, no repairs will be made and no termite report or clearance will be provided. That's pretty clear. The fact that she uses no punctuation is a little weird, but I think it would clear it up if she did use punctuation, but whatever. It's understandable. I understand what she's saying. She's just saying that seller is selling as disclosed. The term as is a little bit, when you're talking about contracts, we don't want to use that terminology. I know that it's used a lot, but the more correct way to say that is the property's being sold as disclosed, because you are disclosing quite a bit of information about the property. So you're not selling, I mean, you are selling as is. Hang on one sec. Yes. Huh? Can you call? I mean, yeah. Her name's Margaret Ann Mitchell. Just look her up in Folio and give her a call. Say the guy's there, but he can't find the remotes.
Oh.
Yeah, the ones that weren't programmed. Sorry about that. All right, next one is home inspection to be removed in 12 days. Home inspection to be removed in 10 days. So, or 12 days. We kind of know what she's talking about, but I mean, come on, all of this tells me that this agent is just not either experienced or somebody else is doing the paperwork for her, or she's just going through it way too fast, because it's not clear. This is not a good way to write a contract. So what she's saying, I assume, is that she wants the inspection contingency to be removed in 12 days, but she's not writing it the way it should be written. EMD to be in escrow in 24 hours a little unrealistic. I mean, come on. If we're in a weekend, there's no way. We just responded with the buyer counter yesterday, so I don't know. I think that's a little, when you're countering your offers, I would never say anything about hours. Always use business days, because we cannot do anything on a weekend. Why would you use hours when there's 2 days out of every week that you are not able to comply with that term? Listing to show active in the MLS until buyers remove home inspection contingency. That's fine. You know, a lot of agents do that, and you can do that too, especially when the market gets tighter. You don't want to be showing it in escrow or pending until you're sure it's gonna, go through. It seems like this agent, like, just based on her multiple counter, it seems as though she's had some trouble with transactions falling apart because of the things that she's asking for. These are things that you would ask for if you're expecting it to fall apart. So she's must have had a few fall apart. Now she's like, okay, I'm not gonna be left with nothing the next time it falls apart. So she's really arming herself against that, or at least making sure she's in a better position when it does.
Bobbi, I have a question. I hate to cut you off, but her asking for it to remain active in the MLS,
Mhm.
would it have to remain active under contract because of MLS rules and guidelines?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just,
She cannot have it remain active because that's a violation of the MLS rules. Thank you very much, Chaz, for asking that question. And if anybody has a question, please cut me off. I'd rather
sorry.
answer your questions than just be rambling on. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It has to be active under contract. It cannot be left as just active. So excellent point. Thank you. Okay. So the seller has signed this. We received it, and so we responded back. And I want to show you how we responded back. So, because there's something very important in the seller counter offer. Let me make sure it's not, oh, no, it's in this one. So remember, I'm always saying, please read your contracts. If you're going to ask someone to sign something, you better have read it just before, or at least the day before, or sometime before. And if it was 6 months ago when you read it, be sure that your memory is impeccable and you can remember that, because these contracts are just what I said. They're contracts. They're legally binding. And it may not hit you what kind of power that holds until you find that you are not covered, or that the document that you needed to be signed was not signed. But I'm trying to save you all a bunch of headache and heartache by just saying, read everything, because there's information, especially now, because a lot of the contracts have changed. So you want to know exactly what you're asking your client to do, to agree to, So down here, this is a seller multiple counter. And I want to bring your attention to section E2. No, I'm sorry, 2. Yeah, just section 2. Okay, binding effect. Seller is making a multiple counter offer. Seller is making multiple counter offers to other prospective buyers on terms that may or may not be the same as this multiple counter offer. So when when you write a multiple counter offer, each of them do not have to look exactly the same, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to bring each of your offers to an acceptable terms for your seller. So acceptable terms on this offer may not look the same as acceptable terms on this offer, because if you have a conventional versus an FHA, maybe to account for the fact that you're having to accept an FHA, you're requiring a little bit larger deposit, you know? So each and every one is not going to look identical. Okay, this multiple counter offer does not bind the seller and buyer unless all of the following occur in the time specified below. Now, remember I talked about timelines. It is so important to know and be ahead of your time frames. If you submit an offer, or if somebody submits an offer to you and you're representing the listing agent and you don't get back to them within the 3-day time frame that the offer specified, then they do not have to fulfill their contractual obligation because you're outside of the time frame. So you might have let a really great offer just slip away. So pay attention to those timelines. Everything okay?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, so moving along. So all of these conditions have to be met before this is binding for the seller and the buyer. So number one, seller signs in paragraph 5. So we go to paragraph 5. Oh, it's signed, fine. Buyer signs in paragraph 7. So what's interesting about this contract and really shows why you have to read it is that if you go to 7, it's kind of weird. It doesn't even look like it's something that needs to be signed because it's at the top. I mean, it's under or it's on top, excuse me, of this box. It's just easy to miss. So, but this is the actual acceptance of this counter offer. And this is where you would want to, if you're going to respond with another counter, this is where you would want to put that. You'd want to check this box and put the counter offer number right there. Your buyers would sign here. Anyway, moving along. All right. Seller signs in paragraph 8. So when you give it back to them, they're going to sign here. And buyer receives a copy of the multiple counter offer with all the signatures. So once the seller signs in paragraph 8, if you don't ever get it back as the representative for the buyer, then it doesn't have a binding effect. So the seller could sign it and hang on to it for, indefinitely, and it would never have a binding effect. It has to be returned to the buyer in order to be to have a binding effect. Okay, so buyer receives a copy with the signatures. Note, prior to the completion of all of the foregoing, buyer and seller shall have no duties or obligations for the purchase or sale of the property. So this is the unique characteristic of a multiple counter offer, because there's others out there until you receive it back as the buyer's agent. It has no binding effect. You have to actually receive it back because they may have responded to another multiple counter offer. So that's something that is a little bit unique in the multiple counter offer. If it was just a regular counter offer and you were the only one they were responding to, then your as the buyer's agent, your client's signature would create that binding effect. But in this case, you have to get it back. The buyer's agent must receive it back. Okay. All right. So that is the seller multiple counter. Now I want to show you our response. So let me get rid of this. Oh, I see. Okay, so I need to stop sharing first. Do we have any questions thus far? Okay. Find, oh, here we go. All right, stop sharing. All right. So now I am going to share with you the buyer counter that I sent back because there's just a few things I want to show you on that. This one is really, it really shows the importance of reading everything that you're signing. So let's see, we have the buyer counter offer. Here it is. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to save it and share it with you. There we go. And I'm just going to, oh, I see. Okay. Okay. And it's open. All right. So I'm just going to share here. This one here. Share. All right. Oh, wait. Sorry about that. I'm sharing the same one. Stop share. Okay. Share. What did I do? Bear with me. Oh, here we go. Okay. Buyer counter offer. And I saved it as the name test. Yeah, there we go. Buyer counter offer. All right. So now we're looking at the counter offer that we did back. So this is in response to a seller multiple counter offer. So I kind of cleaned it up, and that's what I like to use counter offers to do. Sometimes even if your clients are okay with the terms in the counter or in the offer, depending on, who you're representing and which type of document comes back to you. Sometimes you just want to clean things up. You want to make clear, especially now that, we're going to have our in-house escrow. You want to respond back with things like escrow company will be, title company will be, just to clarify some things, because ultimately what you want is that contract to be so crystal clear and so impeccable. I keep using that word, but so clear, so precise that you can give that contract to your TC, and your TC does not have to ask you a bunch of questions. The TC knows which home warranty company to use. They know the product that the buyer wants as far as which home warranty plan, how much they're going to be paying for it. They know which escrow company to open with. They know the amount of the deposit. They know the title company and the title company rep. That is exactly how your contract should look once it's fully executed. There should be no questions. It should all be in there. And trust me, I've had my share of crappy looking contracts, but ultimately, you want to have it to where anybody could look at it and know what's going on. There should be no having to ask questions or clarify. So if you have to do a final counter offer just to clean things up, do it. It's going to save you time in the long run. The more time that you spend making sure things are right in the beginning, the easier everything's going to flow going forward. So I always say, put the time in the beginning, and you will appreciate it later on down the road. So All right, so we responded with, let me just point out here. So we responded on September 13th. That's when this document was prepared. And we're responding to the seller multiple counter offer dated September 12th. Remember, they had the date on the counter as one day before they even received the offer. So, but that's the date of the document. Those document dates, those are like identifiers. You look at that document date as the serial number for that document, because it's the way that you'll reference different addendums and things within the contract will be the name of the document and the date of the document. So you want to look at that date as not necessarily a date that you would count from, but more of a serial number that identifies which version of that document you're talking about, because there could be various versions that were written on different days. So you want to use that as an identifier, not a date you would count from. Okay. So we responded with, on the seller multiple counter offer number 1, replace the following text. Because they didn't identify different terms with numbers, we're having to repeat what was said and ask to have text replacing that. So we said each party to pay their own fees, title, escrow, etc., which I didn't like, with each party to pay their own title fees and escrow fees, which is much clearer. It doesn't leave any room for somebody to throw a fee in there and say, well, they're supposed to pay their own, and what really frightened me was, are they talking about the compensation? And it was so funny when I called the agent back to gain clarity. She acted like, well, of course, what did you think? Which really just showed her inexperience with writing contract addendums. Also, in the multiple counter offer, she identified the date of the offer as being 9/13. Our offer was not dated 9/13. It was actually dated 9/6. So I took the opportunity to correct that incorrect date as well. I mean, as long as I'm doing it. So on this counter, it also says, and this is what I really wanted you to take away from today. With the new NAR rules, when you submit an offer, if you are asking the seller to pay the buyer's compensation to you, you must include the SPBB, and you must reference it on the offer. So sometimes when you're putting the offer together, maybe you'll check the box saying, that the seller agrees to pay the buyer's agent's compensation, but the form is not included. Always remember, if you reference an addendum or any kind of advisory or anything that's referenced on the offer, you must include that document with it. So just referencing is not enough. So for this one, we wanted to make sure it was clear that this SPBB is included as part of the offer. In this case, the box was checked, but the addendum did not travel along with it. So we wanted to clear that up in the buyer counter as well. So what is the SPBB? That's the seller's anybody?
Seller proceeds to buyer broker?
Yes. I knew you'd know it. Yeah, seller proceeds to buyer's broker. That has to be included with your offer, signed by your buyers. Since this one wasn't, we are cleaning it up with the counter. So I'm referencing it here. And then also I wanted to bring your attention to okay, I guess it's not on this one, but on the offer itself, I'm not going to bring it up because we're running out of time, but I want you to read in the original offer, it talks about when you're making an offer, not only do you have to include this SPBB if you want to get paid, but you also have to have the buyer's representation completed and signed, because in the offer, it states that if you do not have the seller's, the buyer's representation completed, then you're pretty much forfeiting any compensation. If you're using the SPBB, it's even more important, because if you use the SPBB, but you didn't use the buyer's compensation form, then you're forfeiting any compensation, and the seller has no obligation to pay any compensation to the buyer's broker. So I just, you know what, I do want to bring that up. I want to show you where it says that, because this is so important. So hold on, I'm going to show you.
While Bobbi is looking for that, I wanted to mention on the buyer's broker's agreement, right? The buyer agreement, the very last page that the buyer signs has another section at the top that restates the compensation you agreed upon with your buyer. And the reason they do that is to allow you the opportunity to send just that last page of the agreement to the seller's agent, to the listing agent, if they request it, which they will. If you're asking for the seller to compensate what is due from your buyers, then they're going to ask for a copy of that. They're going to ask for a copy of that agreement, but you don't have to send the whole agreement, just that last page. And at this point, it's not really a matter of forgetting a form. You can't even show them the house without having the agreement signed, let alone make an offer.
Well,
So you'd have to have that done previously before even going into a property with somebody.
well, except for you can physically do it. You can physically do it. You can show the house. Nobody's going to ask you for that form before you show the house. But that's what I'm trying to alert everybody to, is that if you think that you can get away with either delaying having it signed or not doing it altogether, that is not the case. You're going to have to produce that at the time of offer acceptance. And if you left it for later, or you didn't worry about it until later, it's going to be obvious, because the signatures, I mean, you can put, you know, different dates or whatever, but really the correct way to do this is to have it done before you start showing. This takes care of any possibility of not having the correct documents done when you're asked to produce them. Or, you know, maybe the dates on the form are the dates after you showed this particular property. That's going to cause you problems. So I guess that was my my intent, is to show that you can actually show a house without the form. Physically, you can do it, but it's not going to serve you well if you don't follow the procedure to a T. All right, so here is the I'll go ahead and share this.
I have a question, Bobby.
Yeah.
Maybe you can cover later, but so on the buyer representation and sign, we agree with the buyer with the percentage of our compensation, but the seller can